400. Not all of us are going to be gifted to have a kid who's a burner in the 100-meter dash. Not everyone is going to have a kid that can run, a 3,200 for a female under 11, something crazy like that, or a guy under 10, or, below 930. We're not going to have that. Okay? So I always start with the 400 because that's where I can get the most out of my kids, and then you can go which direction? Down and up, right? And if they're good at the 400, they can do a lot of other things, right? They can run on multiple relays. They can go to the 800, they can go down on 4x2, they can step up on 4x8, they can run 300 hurdles, because let's be honest, the form of the 300 hurdles doesn't matter as much as the running in between the hurdles matters. There's so many things you can do. So if I were you, and this is the first time you're ever developing a program, that's where I would start. But if you have a culture that's already built in, then you kind of have to own that culture and then make that the emphasis of your program. And then as you move through your different iterations and your different seasons, then you can start to plan out more specifically for those other events. Okay? The other thing you have to consider is spring break or any of those things that get in your way. How many of you guys have a real official spring break? Okay. Guys, we don't have a lot of time in our season, so if you take all of spring break off, you're not going to have a good season. Because usually spring break shows up about 2 weeks in or 3 weeks into your season, right? So finally your kids are no longer sore in practice, and then they have to stop. But we also have to recognize that we want those people to have a break because it's important for them, for their mind, for the culture of the team. So what I do with our spring break is that we don't meet every day of that week. We'll either meet in the front half of spring break or the back half of spring break. And then we also have a competition on one of those weekends, depending on how it fits into our schedule. So this year we're going to go to that 2-day Festus meet at the end, okay? And then, you probably won't be able to get all of your kids in there, but that's okay. The other thing that we do right before spring break is that we want to get those competitive juices flowing. So typically that week before spring break, or right after, depending on where we're at, we'll have a time trial. So on that Monday, because for me, what's my focus? What is important to me? The 400. What do we train on Mondays? Long speed or special endurance. So that Monday, everybody on my team, with the exception of a handful of throwers, like we got this one young lady, Jayla, who's 6'4" and 250 pounds. She was meant to throw heavy things, right? She's not going to run the 400. That's just silly. Okay, and she was the most improved discus thrower last year. She went from throwing 79 feet out to 115 and a half feet. It's a pretty good growth curve in our program. But anyway, so she's not going to do that, but everybody else is. And then typically our Tuesdays, and we'll get into this, are our tempo days where we might run repeat 200s or repeat 150s. So then on that Tuesday of the week before spring break, our time trial 200. Then on Wednesday, we usually have like a more chill day for our distance runners and our sprinters and maybe even some of our field event people. That's usually an active recovery, so we don't do anything that Wednesday. And then we come back on Thursday, which is typically our acceleration day, our max velocity day. And guess what time trial we do on that Thursday? What do you think we do? The 100-meter dash, right? Because that fits within our program. So even though that week before spring break when they do that time trial, they're doing some high-end stuff, some very competitive stuff, and normally you wouldn't do that many competitions in a week, which we'll get into, okay? But it fits within your program, so that way the kids don't get blown up from doing those things, So you gotta be interesting, because when they go away for spring break, you want them to be hungry for the competitions that are coming up. You want them to be hungry for those meets. And some kids, we're in an affluent area in St. Louis County. I got kids going to Israel. I've got kids going to the Bahamas. So a lot of kids aren't going to be there. But you want to have those competitive juices flowing so when they come back, they're looking forward to something, they're excited about something. And then I try to always leverage mile split to put my time trial results on mile split. So if you ever see red and black time trial, that's what that is. That's from that week. And we do that so the kids can see that, and then their results are up on that site first, and then they're in the rankings first, and so it's really exciting. Oh, look where I'm ranked, all that kind of stuff. And it kind of gets it going as you lean into the season. Another thing, not every competition is important, okay? Not every competition is important. It doesn't matter if you win the tri-county dual meet, okay? How does that even work? It's 3 counties, how do you only have 2 teams? Because it doesn't matter, there's not that many teams. Right? It doesn't matter. What matters are your important team stuff. And again, planning backwards. Maybe at districts you know, hey, I've only got a couple kids that got a chance to get out. But I have a chance to win the conference championship. That becomes your important competition. That's what you peak for. For us, obviously districts is very important. I've been very blessed and lucky to have a good program and have good assistant coaches. And we've won 11 district plaques, either first or second, 11 out of the last 12 years. So districts is kind of like our big meet that we want everybody to peak for. But we also have a huge home invitational, which I don't know if you've ever heard of it, called the Henley Homes. Well, that's an important invitational to us because it's a big one. It's the first time everybody kind of gets to run fast because the weather finally is good, right? And it's our home meet. So we actually plan a recovery week into that meet. We unload those kids to give them a chance to run really hot, jump really far, run really fast. And then they put out a big performance, and then you'll notice if you ever pay attention to our results, if you're a track head like me, you'll be like, well, wait a second, they ran really fast, that must have been a fluke, because now they haven't ran as fast. Well, that's because the other competitions don't matter as much. So we train through those competitions. So there'll be many competitions where we'll have a pretty difficult training day the day before meet, especially for our distance runners. Because the competition, and you have to remember this, your competitions, your meets are a hard practice. Okay? So I know that, hey, a kid wants to only do one event, or they want to specialize or do all that, that's a whole other topic. Okay? But it's a hard practice. It's the most intense practice you will get, will be the competition. So you'll also notice I tend to load my kids up. Now, you have to be careful. Coach and I were just talking earlier, like if you've got a kid triple jumping and long jumping and running the 400 and running on the 4x8, you may not want to do that every week. Because the 2 kids that I've had that have scored the most varsity points in an individual season, both of them kind of petered out at the end because we did too many competitions. But when you're training through, you know, it's okay to do a bunch, and it's okay to train through, and then just make sure that you give their legs back. And we'll talk about where you plan that and how you do that, okay? Other thing, you need to know what your window of opportunity is in your events, okay? You, like I said, I may be a 400-meter guy, I love the 400. But what if the 400's got the best 5 kids in the state in your district? Maybe you need to pick a different event for that year to be your focus, because you're not going to get any kids out in that event. Now, I still get kids out in that event because we're darn good, but you might not, and so you've got to figure that out. Another thing we do in our planning is we actually plan to try to get all of our kids in, so no kid thinks they own an event. So when we plan our season, we actually plan the competitions in which they're going to participate in those events. So if you have a distance runner, every distance runner on your team needs to run the 3,200, the mile, and the 800. Not in the same competition. All right, don't do that. But you need to have them rotate through. And that way, other girls get a chance, or boys on your team get a chance to run those events too. Because what you're going to find out is the kid you thought that might be the best 2-miler or the best 100-meter dash kid might not. And if you keep running the same 2 kids in those events and throwing those same 2 kids in the throws and jumping those same 2 kids in the jumps, you may never learn that another kid is really good, or you may not know you have the depth that you need to have. So we had a young lady with 2 girls go over 35 feet in the triple, well, over 36 feet in the triple, and we had a 3rd girl go to 33 feet. Well, she now knows, coming back, that 33-foot girl, she's like, I can do that event. So she's excited about coming. So you got to figure out where are those windows of opportunity at. The only way you figure that out is by cycling through, okay? So give every kid that's in your group that's pretty talented varsity opportunities at those events. And you'll notice in our program, every one of our girls has a 3,200 time that's a distance runner. They also have an 800 time, okay? And that way, over time, you figure out who's the best. So when you get to the end of the season, either at your peak competition, conference, or districts, you will know, this is my best lineup. So when you have to play that game of chess of how you're going to get the most points or how you're going to get the kids to section or state, you now have a clear understanding of where you can take your kids. Okay? Peak cycle. So when you're looking at your peak cycle, we start our peak cycle for track and field before conference. Why is that? We got conference, districts, sectional, state. A distance runner's peak can be held for 28 days. So you can start to back down at conference, and they still have conference, right, which is a hardcore competition. That's still a really hard practice. And then you've got one other hard practice the week of districts, and then you have districts. And then if the kids make it through, you got the one hard practice, and then you got sections, which is still another hard practice for you. But let's say awesome experience, they peak out, they do really well, and you're like, oh, they might peak too soon. I don't want to peak them too soon. The only person you got to worry about peaking too soon is the distance runner, and they have a 28-day peak. If you've done your job, 28 days, which gets you to what? The state championship. Okay? So that's where we start our peak cycle. Another thing, if you have a robust winter conditioning program, I bring my kids to a peak in the winter. And I know you know how the rules are. You got to be very careful what you're allowed to do, how you do it, all that kind of stuff. But I make sure right before the high school season starts, I bring them to a peak also. I want everybody to be fresh, right? Because you got the kid that comes in and just blows everybody's doors off, 3,200 meter runner, she's running 11:20 in the, oh my God, a huge time, fastest girl ever, right? And then they disappear. You've seen that, you know that. More often than not, that happens in distance running, and then they still limp through competitions and it looks awful. You want them to be fresh, you want them to be ready. You don't want your sprinters to pull a hamstring in the first 2 weeks and never get to do what they want to do, right? So don't be afraid to bring them to a peak. So that means you're unloading them, deloading the training, season starts, and you start your climbing in, and then when you get to conference, that's your peak cycle. And by the way, that's J-Lo. So, you can tell she's gifted at certain ways. Okay, so what's the philosophical center of your training plan? Do you want to have the best relays at state, in the state? Do you want to be the best field team? Do you want to be a balanced program? Do you want track and field just to be something you do for cross country? You got to figure those things out. You got to make some of those decisions. And once you make those decisions, you need to own those decisions. Okay? You need to own them. I told you we do the 400. And the reason why, it gives you the ability to do everything. I had a young lady that ran in 2008. She ran a 57 split in the 400, and she was second in the state in the 100. So people are like, oh, you train for that event, it takes your speed out of your legs. BS. I had a young lady who, in cross country this year, was our number 4 or 5 all year, was a sectional qualifier as an individual in cross country. She's all state in the 4x1 and 4x2. Hasn't slowed her down. And she did cross country the year before. She got better. So whatever your philosophy is, you need to own it. And your kids need to know it, right? And you can't waver from that. You need to own it, and your kids need to know it so that they understand what the expectation is. Because they're going to ask you a lot of questions. God, and you know what it is. When kids are uncomfortable because they don't think they have the ability to do something, they'll always say, this is stupid. If you ever hear a kid say that, it's because they're insecure. It's not because you're stupid or what you're doing is stupid. That's an opportunity for you to step in and say, this is our philosophy. This is why we do this. And here's the other thing. No matter how good or knowledgeable you are, your philosophy will be challenged. It will be challenged. So you need to understand that, and not that you want to be totally okay with it, but be understanding that, hey, even the best coaches get challenged. You guys know who Sean O'Connor is. You know how many state trophies that guy won, the guy who introduced me? He has just as many issues as probably you guys do dealing with parents and training and all that kind of stuff. Same thing. But as long as you have a philosophy and you own it and your kids know it, most of them will come with you. And if most of them come with you, you don't need to worry about the one kid. If you got 45 kids there that are busting their tails and doing everything you ask them to do. All right. Competitions. You've got to do competitions at different points in the week throughout the year. Another thing you got to have philosophically, you've got to have meets for your JV and freshman kids, especially if you're a guys coach, because if you don't have any of those meets, your young guys will never have a chance to compete against people who are in their own age group. You've got to have those competitions. You cannot have your entire schedule be huge invitationals against all these people where you're going and getting your butt kicked every week. You got to have competitions where they can feel confident. And you can feel confident that you can give them a chance to try out a new event. So even if you got a varsity kid who's really good at long jump or triple jump, but they've never high jumped before, and they're a varsity kid, you throw them in a JV meet and you let them high jump. Because you want them to be confident, you want them to feel good. It gives you an opportunity to ease them into something. Ever try to get a kid to run, that's a sprinter, to run the 800? Try to do that in a varsity meet? Okay, in an open event, they're going to go straight to the back, and they're going to jog. But in a JV meet, you can give them an aggressive plan, say, hey, I want you to go out in the first 200 like you would in a 400. That's crazy, but just, whatever. And then in the middle, I want you to run like a mile. And then in the last 200, I want you to run the last 200 like you run your second 200, your 400. Go do it. And then they get out there, they're in the front of the pack, they got some JV athletes, average athletes, they feel good, they're confident, they're running in front, and they might be able to hold on to a win. And now you got a kid who's not afraid to run the 800 anymore. So you got to rotate those competitions, even for your top-end kids. Don't be afraid to use a JV competition as part of your plan to get something out of them at the end of the year. Okay? We also have, so when we do our JV meets, we put them in the middle of the week. Put them on Wednesday, and we host them. We host them. So then what do I get to decide? What meets we do, right? How many people we let in an event? What events do we do, whatever. And then your kids don't have to scramble to get on the bus. And you have all of your other athletes who aren't in the JV meet there to help you put the event on. Here's the other thing. I already told you, but Wednesday is usually our active recovery day. So your varsity kids are active recovery, which we'll get into more in detail here in a little bit. But then after they're done doing their little active recovery, then they can come help you run off the meet. See how that works? And then on Saturday, then they can compete. So even if you got that varsity kid competing in the JV meet, you've given them enough days in between to then be able to compete on Saturday and not blow their legs out. Right? We also try to do meets, varsity meets at the end of the week too. We plan it. I plan meets to be on Saturdays, and I plan meets to be on Fridays. Why? Because you all have family and friends, or boyfriends, or girlfriends, or whatever you're married to now, pineapples, whatever. It's a new world, okay? You have that. So you need to take time for those people. So I didn't know that I was a crazy nut. I was into track, 24/7, 365. That was my world. And then I got a girlfriend. And then she finally said yes to get married to me, which is amazing. She's way pretty and I'm way ugly. Trick or something. Okay? But I knew that if I was going to maintain that relationship, I had to be there on the weekends. And you guys know how that is, right? You have your 12-hour invitationals. And those are important. You need to compete in those. But you don't need to compete in those every week. So you'll notice if you ever see our schedule, 50% of our schedule has Saturday meets, and then the other half of it is in the week. And so that way you guys have your weekends back. Or, if you are a crazy nutty track person like me, you probably can't get your distance long runs in after school like you really want to. So if you rotate that through, then you can use the Saturday for more of those extensive, longer practices that you might not be able to get done after school, especially for your distance kids. Okay. Now, you need to link your themes of your plan. Okay? So every day you have a theme. For us, Monday is our special endurance day. Okay? Which means we're doing our longer intervals, more geared towards our 400, 800, 300, those events. Now, we expect a big effort. Why do we do those on Monday? Because on Sunday, what do? They don't do anything, right? They're at home, they're going to church, they're going to temple, whatever they're doing homework. But they're probably not being physically active. It's the one day of pretty much complete rest, where they're also not cramped and stuck in a school desk or walking around or doing PE. So it's the guaranteed one day a week where they're probably the least active. And they probably also got a chance to sleep in. So when they come back on Monday, it's going to be the freshest they're going to be for that 7-day cycle. So Monday is always, always, always high intensity, extended interval work, special endurance for us, for our program, because it's our focus, 400 meter stuff. Okay? The second day is tempo. And what tempo is it could be, you guys, if you're a distance person, that's your lactic threshold runs, right? That's your fartlek work. Okay? For sprinters, That's your short recovery sprints. So you do a 200 meter, and then you have like a 2.5 minute recovery, and then you repeat it, right? Now that's not gonna make you faster. But what it is going to do is it's going to improve your body's work capacity, right? So you can do more work. So that workout doesn't help you be faster, but it helps you get better at working out, which then allows you to become faster on the days you're actually dialing up the intensity. So we usually do 200s, and we usually do those where we split them down the middle of the track. So as a coach, I can run across the infield and get everybody's times. It's really easy, and even if I don't, I can see where they finish, and I can get an accurate time. If you do it on one corner and on the other corner, good luck figuring out what they really ran, right? If you do it in the middle, it's really easy. But that might not be where we start. We might start with shorter distances, so maybe we do 100, we do it on the turf, and we do what's called hundreds on the minute. They run 100, minute recovery, run another 100, minute recovery, run another 100. So those days, they're gonna feel that buildup of waste, they're gonna feel that booty lock, they're gonna feel that tiredness, okay? But what that does, again, helps them work out better. What it also does is improves their ability to buffer that waste and to get rid of it. If you never go there as a coach with your athletes, if you never have a cross-country kid do a lactic threshold run, they're never going to be able to run a 5K like you need them to when they have to dig down real deep and they got to push for a long period of time. If they've never done the repeat 200s with that short recovery, they're never going to be able to run a quality 400 where they might not be able to run multiple efforts in a track meet, where they might have to run 4 times. And you guys know how districts is. If you got a 100 meter, 200 meter kid, they might have to run 6 times, you know, which is crazy. It's crazy. But you might have to do that. Then Wednesday, we do active recovery. Wednesday's active recovery, that's hurdle mobility. That might be visualization training, might be Pilates, might just be warm up, do your drills, do your stretches, bye, see you later. We might do hand relay stuff where we just do like targets, where they have to target the hand, you know. Whatever they do, it should be light. You want them at practice, you still think it's important. You need to let them know, hey, just because this is a low intensity day, it's an important day, because this is for recovery. So you build that recovery in the middle of the week, because you have the 2 hard days, Monday, Tuesday, and then the recovery day is Wednesday. Now, if you have a JV track meet on Wednesday, then Tuesday is going to have to be a light day, okay? If they're going to run on Saturdays. But you make those decisions, those are easy. Then after that active recovery on Wednesday, on Thursdays when we do our speed power day. Acceleration, maximum velocity, high intensity plyometrics, whatever. Now why do we do that on a Thursday? Because 48 hours is how long it takes for your neurological system to recover. Maximum effort sprinting, maximum effort acceleration is mostly your neurological system. That drives the bus of those performances. So if you're going to compete on a Saturday, 48 hours later is that Saturday, now they're recovered and you can get after it. Friday, if you have a competition on Saturday and you're not training through, Friday's pre-meet, you do some of your skill stuff, you warm up, you get after it. Now, here's the deal. On Friday, we still get after it a little bit. Okay? They will still run some 150s or something like that, but it might only be at like a 75% effort. And the reason why is we don't want them to be stale heading into Saturday's competition. You know, if you give them like complete rest and everything like that, then the body, it's not going to feel right because it's not how you've been training them. So you got to do a little bit of something. We call that Pavlov's Day. All right, so we're trying to stimulate, ring the bell, you know, get them to kind of, the body to be prepared for whatever they're going to do on Saturday. Now, if you don't have a meet on Saturday, Friday can be another tempo day, but your tempo day would be shorter. So instead of doing 200s, you do 150s or 100s. Instead of doing a 40-minute lactic threshold run, maybe you only do 20 minutes. And then if you practice on Saturday, Saturday can be your long run for your distance runners, or it can be a special endurance or speed endurance day for your sprinters to simulate a track meet. So you go out there and you do maybe 2 or 3 efforts, big, huge recoveries in those efforts, and you race model whatever you're trying to do or what they would do in a meet. And now you're doing it in practice. It gives you an opportunity to kind of instruct them and teach them to do that. So if you can practice on Saturday, practice on Saturday. Don't take that day off, because Sunday's going to be the day off. Okay? Sunday's going to be the day off. All right. So, one of the things we do in a general sense, we build our load and our intensity for 3 weeks. The 4th week, we have what's called a bump week, where we will bump them down in volume and intensity anywhere between 10 to 20%. And if you're planning things out, you should have a good, don't just throw workouts out there and not know how many meters you're running. Because a lot of us as distance coaches, we're really good about knowing our mileage. But with the sprinter, you gotta know your meters. And if you're a jumper, you gotta know your foot contacts. And if you're a thrower, you gotta know your number of throws, right? You probably also need to be paying attention to the weight. Everything gets dropped. The entire program, you drop 10 to 20%. That includes your warm-up, your drills, your running, your cool-down, plyometrics, your weight room. Everything gets dropped 10 to 20%. Now, why do we do that? Because the body needs to recover. Now, if you're really, really smart, you tie that down week to what type of competition? Which one are we trying to tie it to? Your important competition, right? Now, sometimes the plan doesn't fit real well, like spring break's the 5th week. Okay, so go up 4 weeks, and then spring break is your down week. Spring break should always be your down week. Because if you don't have kids around, if you've got kids that actually leave or don't show up on spring break, that has to be your down week. Don't be like, we're gonna train through and we're gonna get after it. Don't punish those kids who are there, right? Or they won't wanna come back. Make that your down week. Just plan on that. So it doesn't always fit perfectly in the 3 up, 1 down, but when it does, do it. And then as I told you, when you get to the conference meeting, we're starting to unload, okay? Another thing you can do, you can theme up your entire week. Maybe you're not like me. Maybe the 400 isn't your thing. Okay, that's cool. Maybe you really want to be good at the long and triple and the 100-meter dash and the 4x1. Cool. So theme up your weeks differently. You can have a week of speed. So on Monday is acceleration and maximum velocity. Tuesday might still be tempo, or Tuesday is complete recovery. Wednesday is another speed day, maximum velocity, and then so is Friday, and then the competition is your special or speed endurance. And then the next week could be a power week. Power week could then be, man, you're doing singles or doubles in the weight room. You're doing depth jumps. You're doing a lot of repeat bound plyometrics that week. And instead of doing the running stuff that week that you would normally do on your speed power days, they become weight room and plyometric central. And then you follow it up with an endurance week, which is more of your extended intervals, more of your extended runs. And then that week, and then you don't have a lot of acceleration, maximum velocity going on that week. And then lo and behold, week number 4 still fits the 3 up and the 1 down, because it's a what week? Recovery. And then this week is probably the week you're going to want to do what? Kick butt and take names in that competition, because you're giving them their legs back, right? This is a week you want to. Now, if you're doing off-season conditioning, this would be the week you test. You understand what I'm trying to say? You do your flying 30, your standing 30, or you run a 100-meter time trial, or whatever. But I would suggest don't do any type of off-season, full-fledged time trials. Do different stuff. Do different stuff. Because kids, they get real wrapped up in what they run in December. Oh, I'm not as fast as I used to be. Oh, look at the slow time. It's like, yeah, you were wearing flats. There's 6 inches of snow on the grass. You had a headwind, whatever. Okay. The other thing is, when you do those tests, you need to make sure that they're repeatable. All right. Now, the system I use is a thing called concurrent. And what that means is that you're getting all the values that you want in your training all the time. Every 10 days, your athlete are seeing those things. So you've already heard it, but again, we have practices where it's focused on acceleration and max velocity. We have practice where on special endurance. We have practice where we recover. We have practice where we build work capacity, right? And there's practices where we go all out. Some people don't do that. Some people run a lot of 400, 400, 400, or 100, 100, 100, 100, okay? But what I like to do is every 10 days, I want my distance runners, my sprinters, my jumpers, I want them to see everything that an athlete needs. Do you understand? So there needs to be workouts within those 10 days that fit everything you want to see. There should be strength workouts. There should be endurance workouts. There should be acceleration workouts. There should be maximum velocity workouts. That idea is called a concurrent system. So a lot of people have talked about it going really long, and then working down. So there are coaches like, you guys know who Clyde Hart is from Baylor. Like his first week, they do 2,200s. And then they work their way down throughout the entire season. I don't do that. I start off with small values of everything. So even though we're doing a speed endurance workout, they're going to maybe run a 350 2 times, and then maybe 2 150s. And then by the end of the year, they might run a 450, another 450, and then 4 200s, right? And then as we peak, they go back to the 2 350s and the 2 150s. So that concurrent system is you're doing everything at once, but you're also building from small of all those values, acceleration, maximum velocity, speed, endurance. And then as you move back through the season, you're still showing those things to the athletes. You never go away from those things. Your athletes need to be running full out all year long. You're like, oh wait, it's the winter. It's cold. I can't run full speed. Yes, you can. Just put a bunch of clothes on. Okay? Put a bunch of clothes on. You know, you can only take so much off. You can always put more on. Look like the Christmas story, right? The kid who had the big sweatpants, you know? But they can still run. And then what's kind of fun about that is as the weather warms up and as the layers come off, they're naturally getting faster, but they're also getting faster because you're unloading them from the clothes. So don't be afraid to say, oh, we got to wait till it's warm to run fast. Hell, Missouri doesn't act that way for you sometimes, right? It's like, sorry, I set up 2 track meets in one day because I was trying to dodge a snowstorm. So we were going to go to Timberland. They canceled the meet on Thursday. I was like, good, we're going to go to Jackson, Missouri. That'll be perfect. We'll just go down to Jackson, and 2 hours south, it'll be warm down there. Well, it was bright and sunny. Here it was cold. It was bright and sunny at Timberland. And down in Jackson, Missouri, Mother Nature's like, where are you at, Banta? Snow. So sometimes you just don't know. So you've got to be able to be comfortable with doing all this stuff all the time. Okay? And so you'll see I cover all the bases within a week. And this stuff works. In class 4, we had the second largest number of girls on the 3,200 meter list behind Festus in the top 100. In the 100 meter dash, we had the largest number in the state, period, okay, of girls on that top 100 list. All right? So that's 2 very different events at a school that has very little athletic culture. And I know you probably see me do well. We do that in spite of a lack of a culture that's really superior, like places like Kirkwood or Blue Springs or Lee Summit West. Those places have good culture. They're really into athletics. We're into cello and speech and debate and things. And that's fine. That's great. They're great, wonderful kids. But you can be successful anywhere. But in order to do that, you got to touch on all the key things, okay, in order to be successful. All right, now I know there's a bunch of stuff up here, and you can't really read it, but this is how detailed I eventually get with my plan. So when I lay out my plan, I want to know what my warm-up is. I put it on the board. I let my kids know. I plan my stretching. We don't do the same stretching routine every day all year long. Okay? I have my drills. I have my actual workout. I have what I want to do for psychological stuff. So what's the theme of the day psychologically? We plan our cool down. We plan our prehab and restoration stuff, and then we talk about our goals for the workout. So you should have those, you should be in those hemispheres. When you lay out your training plan, you should have that stuff as part of what you're planning. Every one of those things should be planned every day. Have something in those hemispheres every day that you plan for your kids. And it's really cool if you get really good at this, you tie in your psychological stuff with whatever you're trying to do that day. If you're doing maximum velocity, man, you're hyping those kids up. You have some aggressive quote, you know, you just pump it. And then on days where you're doing your active recovery, it's all about chill and zen and kumbaya and staring at the moon, whatever. And you tie that in psychologically. Why I change my warm-ups and my stretches and my drills, I usually change those every 3 weeks. Why do I do that? I don't want my kids to get bored. But whatever I do change, those 3 weeks needs to be built on what you've already done. Don't go throw out the baby with the bathwater and try something completely different. It needs to be a progression on what you've already done. And that's for everything. Your stretching, your psychology, your warm-up, your cool-down. It all should have a starting point and an end point, and it should naturally progress from one step to another. So if you're doing, let's say, high knees, right? First time you do it. Okay, first 3 weeks you do high knees.
Second 3 weeks, now we're doing high knees with our hands in a different position. Then the third week, we're doing high knees, then we transition into butt kicks, and then we do a mini sprint. Well, now that's 9 weeks into the season, right? It's only 13 weeks, you come up with something else, right? As long as it's progressive and it makes sense. And what I try to do is I try to dial them up neurologically over the course of the year. I try to stretch them that way, where it becomes a little bit more intense from the skill percentage, the skill part. You know, so that's what we try to do. Now, you've got to make sure you're touching on all these things. You've got to do running drills. You've got to do supplements. Kids say, oh, they don't want static stretch. No, they got to do it. And you've got to invest in sports psychology. But again, the sports psychology needs to be actionable. It might not be able to happen every day, so pick a day that you have a team huddle. We usually do Tuesdays for our team huddle. We sit down in a classroom and we will talk about team leadership stuff and things that we expect from them. Okay? And so that way, Monday you're getting after it, you got to work, you don't have a lot of time, that's okay. All right? But you want to make sure you're owning that and building that into your program every week. There should be a sports psychology. How do you order your practice? You do your warm-up first, that's your general running around the track, your skips, your dynamic movements, whatever. Then you do your flexibility. We do static stretching. People are like, oh, static stretch will make your neurological system, and oh, it makes you too loose. No, that's BS. Because then you follow it back up with biomechanics or whatever after you do your team huddle. So we'll warm up, we'll do our supplements, we'll have a quick team huddle where we talk about the day, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, just like you would do in a classroom. Today, students, we're going to do this. Boom, 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 boom. Quote of the day, get into the drills. The drills reset the neurological system. That warms you up for your workout. Cool down. You do some sports psychology stuff at the end of practice. Prehab restoration, goals and checkout. Now, if you're going to lift weights, lifting weights could happen after this, even before this. Be like, oh, you should cool down before you go in the weight room. No, the weight room's part of your cool down. But walking to the weight room would be part of your cool down. Okay? And if you're doing a long run, they don't need to cool down. That's a long run. You don't need to cool down. Okay? And then you do all this kind of stuff and goals and check out. Every kid in practice checks out with me. Every kid. I either shake their hand or I fist bump. And that gives me an opportunity at the end of practice to sit down and pull them aside and say, hey, really like what you did today. Or, hey, your attitude was not good. You need to bring a better attitude. You're kind of being viral, spreading out to the rest of the team. We got to fix that. Or, hey, what's up with this grade in your class? So every kid checks out with me with the fist bump or handshake. They don't just leave from their different event group or whatever. Okay? We're getting close to question time. All right. So now you have your plan. You've developed it. You put it together. You have your key competitions. You have your recovery days. You have your JV meets. You know what you want to do at the end of the year. You're like, I believe I can get my kid to the state championship. I've got my philosophy. It's going to be sprints, distance, field events, whatever. Coach Banta loves the 400. Okay? You've got that. Now you've got this plan. Don't be obsessed with the plan, because sometimes the plan ain't going to work. That's okay. You may have to make adjustments, or maybe we can't get it done on Monday because it's snowing outside. But then tomorrow, because it's Missouri, it's going to be 85 degrees. That's okay. Then rotate the days. But because you know, hey, I've got these 6 workouts I want to do in the week, you can slide them around. Just move them around. Don't be like, we got to do this today because that's what I said we were going to do. No, do it on a different day. Another thing. If your kids don't show up because they start to figure out what your plan is, and they know what the hard days are, and they don't show up on the hard days, then they do the hard workout whenever they show back up. And if they don't ever show back up, then they're not on your team, and why do you want them anyway? Right? So there are a lot of times where I'm coaching, and I've got 6 different workouts going on the track because we got kids showing up late for cello, or speech and debate, or whatever, or they got in trouble, they got a detention, or they were sick, or they just didn't show up, things like that. But don't be afraid to, adjust what you're doing. So like, hey, I want to get acceleration done today, and the weather's good, but I don't know that we can get this much done. That's okay. Still do acceleration on that day. Keep the theme the same, but switch up what you're doing on that day. So if you had this big long plan you planned out 4 months ago, and you get to this part of the week and you're like, oh, I don't think we can do this, but I still want to get something done like this, then keep the theme, change the workout. Does that make sense? Keep the theme, but change the workout. We always put the weight room at the end. I know sometimes it's convenient and easy to put the weight work like at the beginning, everybody goes through a circuit or whatever. Don't do that, you're going to get kids hurt. Now if they work out in the morning and lift weights in the morning, or they have a weight room class in PE, well then that's just the way it is. That's okay. I would rather you not do that. I'd rather you put the weight room after the running and jumping and all that kind of stuff, and here's why. The weight room taxes the neurological system. It fatigues the entire muscle. Okay? And because it does that, now muscles are starting to have to do stuff when you're running at full speed that they're not supposed to do. And they're not able to handle it. And kids get hurt. Put it at the end. They're like, well, my squat number's not good, my bench number's not good. It'll be fine. When you actually test for football in the summer, you'll be more fast and stronger than you've ever been in your entire life. And your numbers will be great on the day you test because you're not going to run in front of them. But we're a track team. So the weight room is secondary. The speed leads the training. The weight room is supportive to the speed. You understand? And that's even for your throwers. Okay? It's even for your throwers. Because when they throw that thing, they're throwing it fast. They're not throwing a 225 pounder. Right? They're throwing like less than 5 pounds.
Would you do the track in the morning and then do the weights after school?
If you have the ability to do that. I know my buddy O'Connor, they have a really late end of the day, so he'll do a lot of his running in the morning and do split workouts. So that's not the problem. You can do that. You know, in fact, that'd probably be better, you know, for them. Because again, you know, when you're thinking about the weight room and you want to go heavy, you know, in the morning, that's probably not
On your Mondays, do a heavy sprint day, then you can do a heavy lift day as well.
You can, and that's a great question or a great statement. So when you go intense, right? So don't say, well, you know, we went really, really hard on Monday, so they're going to be trash in the weight room. Too bad, they still got to go lift on Monday. Because on Tuesday, Wednesday, they got to recover. Right? Because you don't want to trash them every day, because then they never get any recovery. Because the weight room is hard. So you would trash them. So the hard days are hard. So we lift, if we can, on our Mondays and on our Thursdays, because those are our highest intensity days. Great question. Okay? Plyometrics. If during bounding, so left, right, or right, left, left. At the beginning of the year, we use that as part of our cool down. We use plyometrics, endurance bounding, as part of our cool down. All of our kids like to do that stuff as opposed to, okay, go run 3 laps, and then what do they do? Right? And then as they get around the turn, it's the first week of track, and all of a sudden, and they grab their calves because their calves are doing all of the butt run, you know, I got a poop run down the hall, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? That's terrible. And then their calf cramps up and they're probably toast for the rest of the week. So you don't want that. But if they do some plyometrics where they're really opening up and bounding out, that's really good. Or we'll do like, for our cool down, we'll do descending pace 100-meter striders. So the first 2 are really fast, second 2 are 75%, third are at 60, fourth pair are at 50. Instead, because then you got 800 meters worth of work, but it's not the 2 ugly laps and them grabbing their calves. So at the beginning of the year, we'll do the enduring bounding as part of our cool down. Then as the season moves along, like I said, I play with the neurological aspect of it. We'll start to slide the plyometrics to the front of practice because they're very intense. You go from doing those to doing some depth jumps, to doing big bounds, explosive bounds, or hurdle hops. When you start to do those bounds, you then slide the plyometrics through the phases to the beginning of practice because they're more intense and they become more of a part of your speed power. So that's how we handle plyometrics. On recovery days, lots of visualization training, hurdle mobility stuff, which you guys have seen. We do all of that. Okay? Doing targeted handoffs, having them watch video of their performances, either as a jumper, thrower, sprinter, and then have them watch video of a world record holder in their event. Or maybe have them watch video of the best kid that's ever come through your school. That's what we do on Wednesdays. We might do some core training a little bit, but that's what we usually do on our recovery days. Bad weather days. If you have multiple bad weather days in a row, do not train on the tile or your carpet, whatever you got in your school, 2 days in a row. That concrete will blow up their shins. Figure something else to do the second day. So Monday, if you've got bad weather, okay, good. Do whatever you need to do on Monday. Tuesday, you do something very different than you would normally do, because you do not want them on that hard tile or surface. And then Wednesday, you can come back. If you got 3 days in a row of bad weather, that sucks. What a terrible week, right? But then you could do something on the tile again. If you've got a lot of bikes or a good weight room, there's other things you can do. But don't run inside on the concrete or tile 2 days in a row on a bad weather week. Split it up. Okay? Again, cold weather, we go outside. We go outside in cold weather. Here's my general rule. If it's below 30 degrees, between 30 to 20 degrees, we probably will still go outside. But we warm up inside. We do all of our drills inside. We do our general warm-ups inside. We do our team huddle inside. We do our stretching inside. Then we go out to the track and we work. If it's 30 to 40 degrees, we do everything but our drills inside. We do our drills and then our workout outside. If it's 50 degrees, you just go outside. Or 40 to 50 degrees, you go outside. And anything above that, you go outside. Okay? But you still have to go out. And I look at it like this, is if it's cold, okay, there's a lot of coaches that would cancel practice or not go outside, or kids that won't give a good effort outside. And I always tell my kids, I said, this is an opportunity for us to level up where they're not leveling up. I call it a bank account workout. So we're cashing in a workout, we're putting that in the bank where they're not putting any money away today for later. Because when the end of the season, when we peak, we've still gotten about 6 more days of training because we went outside and got after it where they didn't. So our bank account is going to have a nice positive return where they might be broke by the end of the year because they just didn't get it done. And so when it's time to peak and we want to cash in and take that awesome trip to state, our nice vacation to state, business trip, we can do that. Or they can't. So we go outside with school. Injuries. You got to plan for injuries. They're going to happen. So if you have your workout and the kid gets hurt, figure out what kind of workout you can have as an alternative and have that plan too. Have the alternative workout plan. So you have your B workout. So like if we get a kid that rolls their ankle or something's wrong with their hamstring, after they warm up, we pull them aside and say, hey, what's going on? They talk to us, go, okay, can you accelerate? Because acceleration doesn't really need the hamstring as much. That's usually what they get hurt, right? Yeah, I think I can accelerate. Let's see that. Can you run at 50%? Okay, let's see if you can run at 50%. Okay, you can't do that. Okay. Can you dribble run, which is that ankling run, kind of mini hurdles or whatever? Okay, you can do that. Great. You can't do that. Can you get on the bike? Do you have a bike? Can you bring a bike to practice? I have kids ride the bike on the track at practice. Because I don't give a darn. I know it's not my track, but I act like it is. All right, then they run out and they ride the bike out in lane 8. Whatever they were supposed to do in practice, I double the distance on the bike, and that's what they do. Because I keep the kids outside. Anything you can do to keep the kids outside with the team and keep them active, better. So like if we're doing high knees, and the kid's hurt, so they can't do high knees, then we'll have them do lunge walks, and all sorts of different lunge walks, knee squeezes and things, and they do the drills right next to their teammates. If they have a bike, and they've been hurt, or they got some kind of serious thing that they can't run for a while, we tell them, bring a bike to school, I'll lock it up in the stadium, underneath the stadium, or in our shed. Get your helmet, okay? Come to practice, and we're going to do workout on the track, as opposed to sending them into the aerobic room, and you know what's going on in there, right? Watching SpongeBob, they're Snapchatting with like unicorn vomit pictures, stuff like that, right? We don't want that, right? So you gotta have that B workout set up for every day. Have it set up for every day, so that kid feels that they're a part of the team. They feel like they still got something to do, and if you can challenge them. Like we get after it on the bike workouts. Like if we're going to do an acceleration day, and if they can lower the seat, we'll lower the seat down to mimic that crunch and acceleration. If it's a maximum velocity day, we'll have them fly in and then really get hard up and tall on the bike and pop, 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 pop on the bike to simulate running at maximum speed and upright running mechanics. You can do all that kind of stuff. We had a kid, when we won the state title in the 4x2, in the 4x4, she had a stress reaction in her femur. And I don't know why the doctor let me do this, but he did. She said she can't run throughout the week, but she can run in races. Stupidest, craziest thing. I felt like I was going to vomit every meeting. I was like, I think I'm going to break this kid. It was dumb. I wouldn't do it today. I don't know. But the parents were totally cool with it. Everybody signed off on it. So what we did is we did hardcore bike workouts or pool workouts in the morning that simulated exactly what we were going to do in our themes of practice. She would then lift weights at the beginning of practice when the kids would be warming up and doing their stuff. And then when they would do their runs, she would come out and do seated runs for the same amount of time that they were actually running. And she did that for the last 4 weeks of the season. She anchored our 4x2 to a state championship. We had a great 4x2 that year. And boy, oh boy, if I would have went any longer, I mean, those girls were coming. You know, like she was getting rolled up on. But she was still a state champion in the 4x2 and was able to make it through the season because we still provided her quality enough work through injury through our B workout. Does that make sense? Okay. Questions? What questions do you guys have? I only got like 10 minutes. Yeah.
In your book that you have, do you have to go over all the, because you say a lot of stuff about this. What about those of us that are just used to throwing heavy stuff, and now we have to teach runners?
Right.
So does it teach how to go to develop a running program?
Yeah, oh yeah. So we've got two programs. Yeah, we've got two programs going on. In the Sprinters Compendium, in that book, I've got 5 different workouts. I've got a workout for 2 different types of short sprinters, a 200, 400 runner, and then a 400, 800. Okay, so we have workouts for all of that. Each workout that I have in there, I have a 3-month plan. You know that page that I had here? So that, there's like 100 pages of this. Day to day, everything to do, how to do it, what to do. Day to day. And it's all put in a very simple, easy, consumable way. And again, it's like, okay, I want an 800, 400 runner, okay, boom, 3-month plan. 200, 400 runner, boom, 3-month plan. And I did 3 months because our high school season is what? 3 months. And you can recycle that plan. So you can take that plan in the winter, do it in the winter, if your school allows you to do it, and then do it in the spring again, if you do it 2 weeks.
Well, if you did 2 days a week lifting, your Monday would be your heavy, intense day.
Yeah.
Your next day, Thursday, would be a medium type day.
We'd still do the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, similar. Now here's the thing about weight room. That the winter is where you lift the most. Okay? Because again, you can get a lot done because you don't know what the weather's going to be like in the winter, but you know what the weather in the gymnasium hopefully is going to be like. Some of us don't have the best facilities. There's an atmosphere in here. It's doing stuff, right? But you can lift. We lift 4 days a week in the winter. But in the season, we lift 2 days a week. And then in the summer, we'll lift 3 days a week. And my distance kids lift just like my throwers and my sprinter kids do. Yes?
Can you go back to the picture of the book?
Yeah.
It didn't make it back here, so I just want to make sure it's something.
Absolutely. Yes?
What do you do with, I assume that you have a lot of kids that they're your best sprinter, you're also your best jumper,
Sure.
you're the best athlete.
Absolutely.
And is the week setup that you have, what we run into is everybody wants the fresh day.
Yeah.
So like, I want my full waters, my high jumpers to actually have legs to be able to not fall on their faces when they're jumping, good quality jump session. I also want them to run with the other really good sprinters so they get that. So you just don't get the same work out of running out.
So here's what I do as a coach. So what I do is every week we meet as a coaching staff and we lay out the week for the athletes that we share. And we say, here's the athletes, the 10 athletes that we share. What do you want this week? What do I want this week? And then we plan it out. So we do it 2 ways. Either A, they get this week, they're going to be here with them. And then next week they're not. Or we rotate that I get them at the beginning, first 45 minutes, and they get them in the second 45 minutes. And no matter where we're at in that workout, at that cutoff time, they're going over. And we do that. So that way they get days where they're fatigued with me, and then they get days where they're not fatigued and they're fresh with me. And that's good because as an athlete, you don't ever know where maybe the pole vault's going to be. So sometimes they're going to be fatigued, sometimes they're fresh. They need to know how to handle it. So yeah. It is. Well, and that's why, yeah. And so meeting as a coaching staff, demanding that we meet, lay out the schedule for the week as a staff, and then everybody gets that printout, and they know, and then you hand it to the kid, so they're also aware, so they know where they're going. So just a little bit of prep time like that, a half-an-hour conversation once a week, will take care of all that, and then make sure you just hand it out to the kids so they know where they're going to. And then what I do is I usually, when we're done with our
our drills and all that kind of stuff, I will then take the kids and say, okay, you're going here, you're going here, you're going here. And I make sure they are reminded, this is where you're going. Because sometimes if you have like 100 kids, they may go wherever they want to go. And so I literally walk down and tell them, this is where you're going. If they're a kid that's borrowed between groups. Does that make sense? Because some kids are just but that's how we handle that. And it takes care of all of those issues. We rarely have a problem with the kids going to the hospital. So, yes? Yes. Yeah, and even our throwers do the warm-up. The throwers do the general warm-up and the throwers do the drills. And you're like, why are my throwers doing high knees? They're never going to do high knees. It makes them a better overall athlete, and a lot of your throwers are probably football players anyway, and that's how you sell it, right? Or they're softball players or something else if they're a female athlete. So you sell it that way. But we don't necessarily do the same amount of volume because they're going to take a lot longer. So usually whatever we do in our warm-up, they do half of it. Because it takes them about twice as long to get through the general running and things like that. And then they do all the drills with the team. So they know that they're always like, Coach Vance, how much are we doing today? 3 laps. Okay, cool. And then they go do it. Other questions? If you guys want more information on this, I'm selling the books for $10 off. Like I said, I've got 4 different 3-month plans in there, 763 pages. It's not just me. There's 50 other coaches from the high school, club, college, and Olympic level that have participated